Look, detectives combing through the hood looking for a corpse. Draco hitting, I don't think your body can endure the force. I whipped the fish up with a fucking hanger or a fork. Told that bitch, go ahead, sniff what you want, there's plenty more to snort. I had an outstanding warrant for a short. Turned myself in, rocking Louis and all my jewelry, I wore the court.
Ladies and gentlemen, episode 95 of the Hard to Kill podcast. Today we have First Sergeant Randall Parkes. What's going on, brother?
Well, it's just Randall now, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I see you. So how's everything going since you got out? You got out in 2021, correct?
Yeah, I retired in July of 2021.
What do you think?
Dude, it's awesome, man. Yeah, I had this guy tell me this. He had this saying, when you get out, a lot of people think that maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side, but he would say, not only is the grass greener, they water it twice a day, they cut it twice a week, and it even feels better between your toes.
I love it. So it's safe to say
I
easy
enjoy
transition, bro?
I wouldn't say it's an easy transition. I planned for it. I know you referenced a minute ago that you watched one of my podcasts where I talked about veteran transition. I planned well for it. So I think I got out with my best foot forward, but I've made a couple pivots since I got out and that's okay.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I know every veteran goes through a different phase of human emotion, when they get out. So I am not without that. For sure.
Gotcha. It was to be honest with me, man, it was kind of a culture shock because when you're in that steps and taps process, your head's not there. You're kind of, it's a lot at once because you're thinking about all of a sudden you're leaving all your boys, you're leaving everything you ever knew. And I mean, yeah, it's kind of a lot sometimes. And I don't know, some people kind of dog out on the process, but I mean, I feel like you get what you put into it, definitely. And if you plan for it, it definitely helps you in the long run, for sure.
Yeah. I guess what I'll say about steps and taps is you need to do it like a year and a half in advance. Because when you go, you're going to quickly realize that the person sitting up there squawking about transition never transitioned. They went from freaking camis one day to khakis, a goatee, and a gut the next day. They never transitioned. They never got out into industry or into entrepreneurship or into any of those things. So if you're going to hang your hat on TRS, you were screwed. Not to say they don't do a good job for the time frame that they have. They have 5 days.
Yep.
They do present some good information, but dude, it's not you need to prepare. You need to prepare.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear you there. So okay, let's I see maybe start. I don't want to ask you the same generic question, why you joined the Marines. I know you joined in the 2001 time frame, correct?
Yeah, so I depped in 2000. I believe I was a junior in high school when I depped in, and then I joined in July of 2001. I went to MCRD San Diego, and I graduated in October of 2001.
But
so
would it be safe to say that 9/11 played a part in that, or?
No, because I was in boot camp during 9/11.
Oh shit! Damn, what was that like, dude? I don't think I've ever talked to someone that's been in boot camp when that popped off.
Dude, it was wild, man. I remember we were on the shooting circles in Pendleton, and the drill instructor came up and was talking with the PMI, and they were just kind of talking, and I could tell by the looks on their faces that there was something serious going on.
Yeah.
And then the drill instructor, he was our third hat, our kill knowledge hat or whatever. He pulled us aside and was he's like, hey, bring it in. And I'm like, bring it in? And he used his regular voice. I'd never heard his regular voice up until that point. And he took his campaign cover off. He was a senior drill instructor,
so this meant
he
something.
changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, oh, either we're about to get fucked up, or
Facts.
or something really bad happened, like serious happened. And he's like, look, I don't know all the details. The United States is currently under attack. You might want to pay attention to what you're learning out here for marksmanship, like, or what you're learning today. And of course, all of us are thinking Pearl Harbor type event, something like that. And then it wasn't until later on that night that the series commanders and company commander, they brought us all in. They wives were at home, like recording on VHS tapes. If some of you remember what VHS tapes are.
Oh, of course.
And they're just showing us news clippings throughout the day. So that was like our first like instance as to what happened.
Gotcha. That had to resonate with you, man. Just being in boot camp right then. I mean, that had to hit a little different,
Yeah, I mean, I always knew that at some point, like it would probably be my eventuality joining the Marine Corps. Like you're going to go to combat, typically every 10 years. Like the Marines are shooting somebody in the face somewhere, but then it became real, right? And when it really became real is, like when you're on Pendleton, did you do West Coast Marine?
No, I was East Coast, but I've been to Pendleton.
So, like hiking up and down the hills, do those hikes in boot camp on Saturdays. And, the fog starts clearing out, the overcast. And dude, like you just see like out in front of Pendleton in the Pacific there, just a sea of ships. And, 46s and 53s day and night flying back and forth, LCACs back and forth. And the next week we went out there to hike and they were gone.
Wow.
We were like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what it was like.
So you were an 0351, correct, Assaultman?
Yeah. When I first came in, I was an 0351.
What do you feel about them taking that away, man?
The changes that are made, some good, some bad. Like I didn't really care one way or the other.
No.
I'd already moved out of the MOS by the time they did it, so it didn't have any effect on me.
Gotcha.
But yeah, from what I understand now, it's just integrated within the platoon.
Other various, yeah, exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So something that I enjoyed seeing with you is you kind of had the field background. I mean, you pumped out a couple of times before you went over the DI field. I loved your story about that honorary sergeant, by the way. That cracked me up, man. But now bringing that to the DI field, you mentioned a couple of things when you said that it was kind of a big deal when Osama got clipped, man. Obviously, that means something to the guys that were over there doing something. I was actually in country when that happened. It's funny that happened.
Damn.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, you had brought it up to the other DIs, and it seemed like they didn't even give a fuck. You know what I mean?
No.
That's fine.
It was a weird place to adjust to when I first got there. And I'll give you a little bit of context, so maybe for some people that never saw the other podcast that I did. My plan was never to go necessarily be a drill instructor. Like
I picked that up.
Yeah, like I wanted to go on MSG duty that I could like finish my degree while I was out there and like enjoy myself. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
I had just done like 3 combat deployments like back to back, like from 06 to 10. I did 3 deployments in that time.
Gotcha.
So
okay,
just turning and burning. But my wife and I, we got married. We bought a house out in Temecula,
Okay,
and
gotcha.
I just wanted to stay in my house. So I was like, oh, well, I'll just go to the drill field. Like, no big deal, right?
Of course, they sent you East Coast.
Yeah. So, the monitor is like, oh, you're qualified. We'll put you into the January class for PI. And I'm like, what's PI?
Oh.
He's like, parent. I'm like, what? No.
What the fuck?
I'm like, hell no.
Oh.
I don't want to do that. And he's like, well, do you want to be a drill instructor? I'm like, not really that bad, So I ended up taking the orders and, everything works out for a reason. I met some phenomenal people on that duty, but it was definitely a culture shock for sure.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, just for everyone that doesn't understand, guys that, pump out, deploy, it's a different transition when you go into the DI field because you have to have a completely different mindset. And it's almost like completely different cultures. So that must have been tricky.
I'll give you a good example. Yeah, I'll give you a good example. So I believe it was like maybe my second cycle. I was still a green belt drill instructor, but I was real senior. Like when I went, like I'd been in 11 years by the time I made it to the drill field. So, in those 11 years, like I did a lot of things. Like I was already like a free fall jump master, 3 combat deployments, and
Stacked up.
yeah, dude. And so like when I would teach the recruit stuff as a green belt drill, so there's a way that you teach it. And depending on what phase of the cycle you're in, you teach it a certain way.
Of course.
So like I was teaching just basic stuff like land nav and this and that. And I would teach it like I would teach a bunch of privates, PFCs. I wasn't teaching it like a green belt drill instructor. And, I had this sergeant, I won't put his name out here because he's still in the Marine Corps, but he came up to me. He's like, hey, you can't teach them like that. You got to blast them the whole time. And I'm like, no, I don't, dude. Like, they're not going to learn land nav if
Absolutely.
I'm blasting it to them. Like, and they need to know this shit, regardless of their MOS.
Yep.
They need to know it. And he's like, I just don't think that like what the Marine Corps needs out of a recruit. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, how? When did you join the Marine Corps?
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
like 2006, and I'm like, dude, I was a staff sergeant.
Settle
already
down.
Like, fuck out of here.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. Like practical field stuff when you try to implement it, with things they're actually going to use. I mean, because at that time, I'm sure Afghan's kicking off, or at least in full swing. So these guys are
Afghan
actually
was
going to
in
be
full swing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this is 11 to 14. So
Gotcha.
like Afghan for the Marine Corps really picked up like 11 and 12 was like full tilt. So
yes, indeed.
like these kids were going to Afghanistan. Like
Gotcha.
6 months, they were gone.
And that had to mean something
to you. I took
that
part serious.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I liked when you were talking about Resper, when you that was the first point where you actually like started really getting into the DI mode and figuring out how to really change a recruit and get them, locked in.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a hard time adjusting when I first got to the drill field. I just wasn't part of my natural like personality.
I hear that.
But dude, when you're a drill instructor, man, like you get up at 3, you're on deck at 3:30, and then your head is not hitting the pillow until like 2200. And then you're not really eating throughout the day. You're losing like 30 to 35 pounds per cycle. So it didn't take long for the switch.
Yeah, I bet.
And my first cycle and second cycle were in the summer. So, dude, it is like Africa hot.
Oh, I'm aware, dude. I'm aware. No
like
good. No
in
bueno.
Paris Island.
Oh, shit, dude. So how do you do that nonstop, man? That's to stay motivated in something like that, because it's so different than the fleet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a completely different mindset. How do you keep that motivation all the way through? Do you really take it from like just doing your job properly?
I mean, motivation is kind of one of those. Motivation's like a fickle thing, right? Like it comes and goes. Honestly, there's a lot of factors involved in what kind of keeps you going, right? Like, say my main driver was that I knew that these kids were going to go to combat, the large majority of them, and I knew that I needed to give them everything that I had so that I trained them as hard as I could so that they survive.
Gotcha.
And I'll give you a great instance. When I went back down to the drill field as a first sergeant, Kyle Carpenter came and talked with my company of new Marines. They just finished the Crucible.
Yep.
And he said something that I never really thought about before, but it really made a lot of sense to me when he said it. He was like, hey, look, like, I know your drill instructors were hard on you throughout the cycle, and I know they like slayed you to death. And that's a good thing because they're training you, they're setting the foundation so that you can leave here, go to your follow-on schools, and eventually you're going to end up in the worst environment on the planet, in the worst possible scenarios and situations. And you're like, let's use Afghanistan because a lot of us are familiar with Afghanistan. Those guys grow up in that. Like they live that. They live in that harsh environment.
It's nothing to them.
Yeah, dude, we live in freaking palm trees, Mexican food and margaritas out
We're
here.
sheltered.
Dude.
We're sheltered big time from that, man.
Yeah, so like you got to close the gap, like to be able to go toe to toe with those dudes. Because the Taliban are fucking hard, man.
Yeah,
Like they were hard.
Absolutely. I don't think that's talked about enough, man. Them boys can fight. I mean, they've been doing it for a long time. And to have, rags and 20-year-old AKs and still being competitive with us, they could fight.
Yeah. Until that A10 came on station now.
Yeah, exactly. See you later. Something else that kind of gearing back towards like deployments, something else that you said, I know interpreters are a big thing for you. And that was a big thing for us too. We had to get, the difference between a good interpreter and a halfway guy. Because when guys can really like tell you those things, those little key words that the person you're talking to is saying that you need to know, it goes a long way. And especially for them to be living in Afghanistan and to agree to work with us, that's big for something for them, And what would you say is a catalyst between like starting to when you show a little respect to those guys, when you learn their language a little bit, when you talk with them, when you just give them like the slightest bit of respect? Because when I would do that, I would get so much more out of them. Yeah. I don't know if you can speak on that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're people like any other people. If you come in there and you show some respect, because I realized that interpreter was, I had many throughout my time over there, but they're risking their lives to be there. Especially the ones that are like living in country and coming in to work every day or whatever the case may be. But yeah, man, respect goes both ways, regardless of what culture it is.
For sure. That was a pretty wild story you told, man. When what was his name again?
Maroof.
I mean, goddamn, that happened in real time, huh? I mean, that's some kind of network you got. That's some kind of bro call you made to make that go through, brother.
Yeah, it wasn't just me. I guess for your listeners, I kind of expound upon basically what happened is, like I said, I retired in July of 2021. Back up January is when I started getting contacted by Maroof. Well, actually, Maroof's brother reached out to me on Facebook Messenger, and it went to like my spam folder. We weren't connected.
Yeah, exactly.
And for whatever reason, one day I just logged in there and I saw I had a message, and it was only a couple of days old, thank God. But it was like a picture of Maroof in the hospital, and he got stitched up, man. He got ambushed.
Damn.
And on his way into the fob or whatever.
Oh, he was still working.
Yeah, he was still working.
Gotcha.
And his brother was already here in San Diego.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it's funny because they I guess they submitted their paperwork at the same time.
That process is such a shit show, dude.
Yeah. So, and I started getting involved. I was trying to do things on my own. I was going to like Congressman Darrell Ice's office. He's my local congressman here in North San Diego County. His office was phenomenal, but I just thought I had time. January, right? But as time goes along,
when did it fall?
I'm tracking
August? Is it August when it went down?
Yeah, August is when everything went down, right? So I've been working this for months, trying to get him out. I want to say it was late spring, early summer. Okay. He contacted me and was basically hey, look, the Taliban have taken over our province and they're going house to house and they're finding people that collaborated with the Americans and they're pulling them out in the street and shooting them. I'm like, dude, you got to get to Kabul. Just go get to the U.S. Embassy. I'm working it all I can. And that's when I started reaching out to my buddies, my network, to get them involved. Different
and that's not the easiest thing to do, dude. Especially with everything going down like that. These guys are busy. You know what I'm saying? For them to do something like that for you, that's big.
Yeah, some of these guys were out already. Some of them were still in. Some of them were plugged in different organizations, whatnot. Yep. And dude, I just kept roadblock after roadblock. As you can imagine, I'm doing it from my house here in SoCal.
Exactly. Yeah, little makeshift COC.
Yeah, and then everything just started blowing up and everything started imploding.
You must have been when you heard that, you must have been like, "Fuck."
Yeah, dude. So I just kind of went on reverse schedule where I was kind of working at night, later into the night, and kind of sleeping during the day. And I was on terminal leave, so
oh, you were still in. Oh shit.
Yeah,
okay.
I was technically still in. Yes. Long story short, once I roped in the right people, a couple guys that were instrumental, a guy named Matt Bartles, a guy named Mo Powell, Master Guns Mo Powell. He's a freaking legend, dude. He really helped me connect the dots to the right people over there to help me get him out. So yeah, it was great.
So did you get to see him when he got back? Obviously, you probably ran into him when he came back, right?
Yeah. So like, they got him out. He went to Germany. He was there for a couple of weeks. They were doing some vetting there. And then he went to Quantico and he was living in like some tents and stuff, like some GP tents,
Nice.
and they did some more vetting there. And then he finally made it here to San Diego. Well, once he made it to the States, I launched like a little GoFundMe campaign and, collected some clothes and some toys and stuff like that for his kids and furniture and about like $3,000 kind of get him off the ground. Awesome. And then, yeah, so he lives here in San Diego. I meet up with him every now and then.
That's awesome. I mean, that had to feel great, man, just being able to accomplish something like that.
Yeah, honestly, man, I thought for many times that I was going to fail. Like I thought that it was going to be hopeless. So yeah, it is probably one of the more things I'm the most proud of throughout my military service, even though it was while I was on terminal leave.
It's wild. So shit, man. I mean, you from 2001 to 2021. I mean, you've seen the Marine Corps change in every which way. What do you have to say about that, man? Do you think it's going in like the? I mean, all the old heads kind of tend to hate on it, like, oh, the alphas are out. It's not the same. But I don't know. Is it staying with the times, or what do you think?
For context for everybody, like, when I joined the Marine Corps, man, I had black boots that I had
That's
to
what I'm talking about
every day.
Yeah.
And I had, camis that I had to iron, So yeah, like from like a garrison standpoint, yeah, it certainly changed. Like when I first came in, it was garrison Marine Corps, even though like the war was going, but the Marine Corps wasn't fully like engaged.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I want to say like 2003, when the invasion happened, that was when it really kicked off, like for the whole Marine Corps. Obviously that changes the focus, that changes the focus for training, that changes the, promotion boards are like, hey, if you haven't been to combat, you're not getting promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say while I was on the drill field, General Amos, he started, the change started happening. They were like, I remember them putting out like, there's like the reawakening campaign. And they're like putting out this stuff like, oh, well, we need to get back to like what the Marine Corps really does. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you motherfuckers have been doing, but we've been doing what the Marine Corps to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like the Marine Corps is not like a surgical force. It's not a scalpel. Like it's a fucking sledgehammer.
Facts. Talk about it.
Like the Marine Corps' purpose is to beat the enemy to death with a fucking sledgehammer. Like
that's what we're here for.
That's it. Yep. So like I was very confused, at that time, and I was a drill instructor at the time, and I really hated that.
Yeah,
sentiment. And there were some things going on in the Marine Corps at the time, like the urination video.
Oh, yep.
Come out, the Sniper SS flag photo that was taken out of context came out. So like, the leaders of the Marine Corps at the time were doing this knee-jerk reaction,
tiptoeing around it, trying to like save face to a certain degree.
Yeah. So yeah, and towards the end of my time in the Marine Corps, I really started seeing things change. But comparative to the other services, I mean, the Marine Corps stayed relatively the same. The other services have really bought into this, new ideology of Now here's my thought on the diversity stuff. So like, the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Diversity, like I think diversity is phenomenal. I think that's what gives us an edge, a combat edge, especially like your peer adversaries like China, Russia, and that. Like in the Chinese army, like it's one way of thinking. There's one way to do things, and they are all the same. Whereas us, like there's multiple ways to skin a cat, you know, and I think that gives us a very real advantage.
I agree.
I mean, think to any platoon that you were in. I mean, like there's dudes from, you know, from freaking
Everywhere.
Boston.
Absolutely. Everywhere.
There's guys from Texas. There's guys from, you know, downtown LA.
Yep.
Like
you see, that's kind of like a melting pot
real...
in boot camp, dude. I mean, you see that nonstop, guys from and getting everyone to work together. I mean, that must be something cool to see, because at first it's kind of like everyone's like butting heads to a certain degree, and then when you find out that you only really accomplish anything by working as a, you know, unit, as a team, I mean, that must be cool to see from your vantage point.
Yeah. Like I remember being in like SOI and like, you know, going up to Oceanside and everyone's wearing civilian attire, and it's so funny, man. You got like the surfer dude, the cowboy, the gangbanger from LA, and you know they're all together. So from DEI standpoint, I think diversity is very important, and I value it for sure. Equity thing is where I break ranks with. It's like, okay, yeah, that may be working or maybe not be working here in the civilian world, but
exactly.
In the Marine Corps or in the military, like the only thing that you are entitled to is an opportunity. What you do with that opportunity is up to you. You don't, like, you are owed nothing.
Absolutely.
You will earn everything.
Facts.
And that needs to stay the same.
I agree.
And same thing with inclusion. Like, inclusion. Yeah, we'll let everybody in, but you're going to meet the goddamn standard.
Absolutely.
And if you can't, then freaking beat it.
See you
later. You know?
Yep. I hear you.
Yeah.
What do you think is the main thing you took away from the drill field?
You know, I'd say the main thing now that I've been removed from it, you know, for a while, like being an actual drill instructor was in 2000. I left in 2014, so almost, so 10 years ago, I was a drill instructor. And I think the biggest thing I took away from it was the impact that I had on young men's lives. Like, I think a lot of young Marines join the Marine Corps, maybe not having a father figure, you know, or maybe they had a coach or something like that. But I think a lot of guys come from broken homes, you know, and at least that was my experience coming in the Marine Corps. And they've never had like a strong man in front of them. And I think, you know, the Marine Corps does that really well by selecting guys to be drill instructors, you know, to be NCOs, like when they get to the fleet, that are strong. And young men need that. They need to get beaten into submission.
I agree.
And they need to be challenged.
Yep.
They need that big brother love, man.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that was probably the thing that I got out of it on a real personal level. But I guess on a physical level, I guess what I got out of it was that if I can make it through that, I can make it through anything.
Absolutely. I hear you there, man. So what would you say? So I talk to a lot of young Marines, guys that are still in, and you know, there's a sentiment going on right now that, you know, a lot of them, and this might be a tricky question, but tell me what you think. A lot of them, you know, they feel like they're being led in the wrong direction by, you know, the administration currently. And it's hard for a lot of them to stay motivated. And now there's, as you said, many ways to skin a cat. And to me, something like that is to focus on training, you know, focus on what you can control, and, you know, just try to stay ready at all times, because that ultimately is what we need to do as Marines. But I don't know, what would you, if you were to give any advice to the, you know, the guys in the trenches right now that are ultimately going to be the ones that, you know, get put over there in positions to be kinetic, what would you say to them? Yeah,
like you said, control the things that you can control, right? Like, I can't control, besides my vote, I can't control who's in office. I can't control what administration, what the national security strategy is at the moment. But what can I control? I can control how fast I run, how much weight I can carry, how proficient I am at my craft. Those are all things that I can control. Because regardless of who's in office, when that fucking Red Star cluster goes up, man, that's it.
Yes,
you know?
Sir.
So, like, control the things that you can control. that's not to say, that's not to minimize it. That's not to say that not to worry about, because, depends on who's in office. I mean, everyone's going to have one thing or another they don't like about it, or they don't maybe necessarily like the direction the country's going in. And that spans throughout the existence of our country for sure. But when you join to serve the country. And if the country appointed this person as the leader, then
that's it.
That is what it is. Yeah. I served during multiple administrations. Bush was president when I first came in, and then Obama, and then Trump, and then Biden towards the tail end. I've ridden that wave as it's kind of gone.
Gotcha. Well said. What would you say is some of the biggest things that you've taken from your career and implemented into the civilian world? Because I mean, you've been very successful. What are some things that has helped you win?
I think the thing that separates veterans from a lot of other people out there is the ability to deal with extremes. Extreme physical discomfort, extreme stress, like task organization. How to deal and talk with people, or as an NCO, you're standing in front of 20 people and directing, and you're communicating, some more effectively than others,
of course.
So dude, some people's biggest fear is getting up in front of people and talking. If you can master that, that's big. That's huge.
Sure.
Things that stress a lot of people out in the civilian world may not stress you out as a veteran. And I think if you can equate it back to experience in your service, I think veterans are more suited when they get out than they think.
I agree. What's your feeling on maybe, I mean, because today PTSD and TBI are big, man. A lot of guys are going through that. I don't know if you've had any interaction or you've had to dealt with that personally, but me, I have. What would you say is something for guys like that to focus on, man? Because veterans tend to have a victim mindset at certain times, and I think it comes into fact that we kind of get pushed into the VA before we get out. And some VAs are better than the others. I've had good experiences, I've had bad experiences. But what would you say to some guys that are kind of struggling with stuff like that? What are some things that they should be paying attention to or focus on?
The thing that I think you should focus on is your family, right? The victim mentality, or the victim stigma that the veteran community has gotten, whether they've earned it or not, really bothers me. I think if you have a problem, you should go get help for it. And I'm not saying that I haven't done that. I've seen things on my deployments. I've done things, whatever. And there came a certain point where I got to a breaking point towards the end of my service, and things started to come crashing down. And instead of just letting it happen, or using alcohol or drugs or something like that to deal with that issue, I went and actually got help for that issue. And getting help for that issue is a full-time job. And I'll
absolutely.
Just give you,
I agree.
I'll give you a quick, my experience, I think it was around my 18-year mark, when you do those annual PHAs.
Oh yeah.
I was honest on it for the first time, the things I was struggling with.
Yep.
And they were like, oh, the 20-year-old corpsman that has never done anything.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
Fuck. And, I didn't have a drinking problem or anything like that. I was just getting too much. So I tried to get help for it. So they sent me to Balboa. I went into Balboa. I thought that was kind of the end of the road. Hey, I'll go there and I'll get help.
Yep.
No, they assessed me, and then they pushed me out in town. I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
All good.
Yeah, I was just happy to finally start getting help. And I was actually positive about it. I
Gotcha.
felt good that I was finally starting to address it. And honestly, it wasn't until that point that I realized that I was having a problem, because I kept my plate stacked for so long that
when the op tempo is so high, you never really look at yourself. No. You know what I mean?
And then when I went to the drill field as a first sergeant, things started coming out. you know,
Sure.
like unbeknownst, like, and I didn't realize it.
Gotcha.
But some of the people around me realized it.
Gotcha.
So, you know, I go in there, you know, I'm telling her my life story and shit. I'm trying to get help through like EMDR. And dude,
I did
like
the same thing.
every time I would go in there, I would have to retell everything because she would lose her notes. And dude, it was like the fourth time I went in there and I was stressed out. Like,
That's not easy to do. Talk about that stuff nonstop. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I'm like, hey, lady, like, you need to get your shit together.
Facts.
Like full first sergeant on her, you know? And I was like, I'm done. Fuck this. Like, I'm done. And then, you know, a couple months go by, and then there was a Navy psych on the depot that I went and saw, and she had just came over from NSW, Naval Special Warfare.
Yep.
And she was awesome, man. Like, I sat down at the time, I was talking. She was like, "Yeah, so kind of tell me, like, what is your day to day? Like, what do you have going on right now?" And I'm like, "Well, transitioning out of the Marine Corps, I have my real estate license, and I'm selling real estate like on the side." And I'm finishing up my master's degree in business at USC. And she was like, what? She was like, what the hell is the matter with you? And she identified, she's like, look, that is a symptom of your PTSD, that you just stay so busy that you avoid dealing with anything else.
Damn, that's deep.
So I'd never thought about it that way before, but it really hit me differently when she said that. And it kind of all like hit me at once, and I was like, oh shit, like okay, now I understand what she's saying. And now I used it to my benefit, of course, because I was just I was getting after it. But you know, I talked with her for a long time, and then right when I got out, I will give the VA credit. Like, I said, hey, look, I need to continue on with some counseling. I need to continue on with my EMDR. And this is all around the time like COVID hit, you know, so getting in to see a counselor was really challenging. And, you know, I would go down to Encinitas, which was a great place for me to meet my counselor. And like, I would go surf like after my counseling session.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So like, it was like a 2-hour block, you know, once a week for a while. That was just for me.
Gotcha.
And so long story short, or long story longer, you want to get better, you have to fight for it. Like, you're going to have to fight for it. Like, it's a long road. Don't be a fucking victim.
Facts.
Like, you're not a victim. Like, you're strong. You have some things you're dealing with that are maybe outside of your control. Unload that onto somebody else, that professional that can deal with this, and move on with your damn life.
Yep.
Like, dude, veterans have like unlimited opportunity, from the GI Bill to VA services, some good, some maybe not so good.
Still, they're there.
They're still there. You just have to fight harder to get it. The VA loan, where you can buy a house and put down $0. Like I came from fucking nothing.
Talk about it.
Like my mom never graduated high school. She's a freaking drug addict. And my dad has had random jobs. He's a hard worker, but he's had random jobs throughout his life. And I took advantage of the opportunities I had as a veteran. And it's not like they were special to me. Like, I just took advantage of them.
Yep.
So, like, if you are feeling as if you were a victim, like, stop feeling that way. Go get help. Do something about it.
I agree. You really got to put. It's not something you can just go and talk to someone once and just you're not cured. You got to put work in. You got to do it over time. I agree with you. And it took a while for me to see that, man, because at first I wasn't a big believer of like PTSD or TBI. I didn't really know much about it, and kind of you understand where I'm coming from, where the old court tends to push, just deal with it, bury it down, deal with it, and tough it out to a certain degree. And I kind of
there's a strategy. Yeah, that is a strategy.
A poor one.
Let me throw out a quick to Intrepid Spirit. Like, so if you're still on active duty, Intrepid Spirit, they have one on Pendleton. I believe they have one on Lejeune, and they have one up in Bethesda. And it's a TBI, like, PTSD clinic. Okay. And I went there like right before I went on terminal leave for 6 weeks. So I had no responsibilities. Nice. No one's calling the first sergeant.
Yeah, exactly.
They got DUI or nothing. it was a little freaking, like, it was a little earthy,
Yeah.
I just went there and I just let it happen. Like,
Gotcha.
you want me to do some yoga? Dude, I'll do some yoga.
Kept an open
Like,
mind. I
I
hear you.
did, man. And I didn't take everything from that experience, but I took some things that I still use now. And,
Gotcha.
it was all about finding what was right for me. And those people there were just so nice, so phenomenal. They didn't look at me like I was a fucking victim,
Yeah, exactly.
because
Yep.
at the end of the day, you're not.
Facts. I agree with you completely. So we have something in common, kind of. So when I got out of the military, I got an opportunity to go on. I don't know if you've heard of the Soft White Underbelly. It's a platform on
No.
YouTube that does interviews. And basically, he does interviews. Like, he interviews a bunch of different people, from mob bosses, criminals, hookers, veterans, just shows like the
Veterans.
underbelly of the way. Yeah, exactly. So he started interviewing veterans, and unfortunately, the guys that had on his show, he wasn't military, so he was doing a poor job at vetting them. And the guys that came on at first were just stolen valor, bullshitting, telling some story they saw in Call of Duty, or some guy at a bar, they regurgitated it,
And
And
all the
I reached,
veterans are like, that didn't happen.
yeah, the comments and blowing these guys up. So I reached out to him. I was like, bro, you might want to do like a better job vetting. And he reached out to me and he asked what my story was. I told him a little bit of my story, and he had me come on. So what made you, kind of do your thing and do your interviews? What kind of pushed you in that route? Because for me, honestly, talking about some of my stuff, honestly, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was a form of therapy, and I really got a lot out of it. So how about what was your thing on that?
Yeah, so I got introduced to Josh from Urban Valor through a buddy of mine. Yeah, I think my main motivation, or at least my initial thought, like, going into it, was that, hey, like, I think I have a pretty, like, inspiring story for other veterans to kind of give them the, the hope, or the idea that you can do this, like, you can do what I just did or am doing.
Gotcha.
So I think that was my initial motivation, like, going into it. And after I did 2 episodes with Urban Valor, and after doing them, I felt like great, because in the first
Same here.
episode I talked about, like, some combat experiences that I never really necessarily talked about before.
Yep.
I just felt like this, like, I went from full ruck to a freaking day pack, like,
I hear you. Well put.
I did feel good about it. And then since then, I've gotten countless, like, emails and DMs of guys, like, saying thank you, and, like, that I helped them in some way, and that feels great.
Of course, I agree with you completely. I think younger Marines today, they really have a great opportunity with being able to utilize YouTube and social media, just to hear some of the GWOT guys' stories, so they can take it and put it into their lives, and get something out of it. Because honestly, we really didn't have that. We kind of just didn't have any kind of social. I mean, social media really started coming around in, like, I don't know, probably halfway when I was in. So that was 2012,
like 06.
Oh yeah,
05, 06. Yeah, MySpace was the hotness back then.
MySpace. I forgot about MySpace. That's right. That was the thing back then. Well, okay, man. Well, that's really all I got for you. I appreciate you coming on, man. Do you have anyone you want to shout out, or any? I see you doing a lot of different, I think, nonprofits, right? Or what do you have going on your end? I thought you were. What was you had posted something on your Instagram recently. I don't know if it was a fundraiser, or if you want to talk.
Yeah, please. And thank you for allowing me to highlight Absolutely. That. Yes, for this will be the 3rd year we've done it. I partnered with the Recon Foundation when I first, got out. I wanted, I got a good piece of advice, like, when I was getting out, and that was to, get involved with the foundation, get involved with something that you're passionate about, that you care about. And that kind of helps, like, keep your cup full, because when you're serving, like, you don't realize it, but, like, you feel proud about what you do, because what you do has purpose. Yeah. And sometimes you lose a little bit of that, like, when you get out. I wanted to, like, get more involved with the Recon Foundation. So me and the president of the foundation, Pep Tablata, we had this idea, like, hey, let's throw, like, a 0321 day, fundraiser, or not fundraiser, but, like, get together.
Yeah.
And March 21st, 0321 day was it.
Perfect.
I knew the operations for Ballast Point lived in my neighborhood. I didn't know that at the time. She was in there like chucking beers.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, where are you getting all these beers? And she's like, oh, I'm the director of ops for Ballast Point.
No
and I'm
shit.
like, you don't say. I was like, hey, I got an idea. Can I pitch it to you? And I'd already had 2 of her beers, so I was in rare form to pitch it up to her. And she's like, I love that. Like, I love that idea. We can do it on 0321 day.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll dedicate a beer for you guys for the day. We'll get a drawing done up.
Damn, that's dope.
And we'll provide like a donation and all that. So that's kind of how it started with Ballast Point. And the first year we had like 100 attendees. And then last year, dude, we had like 350 people show up. Shit. So the first year we raised $5,000. Last year we raised about $25,000. And this year we're hoping to get up into the 40,000 to 50,000 range.
Nice.
So on March 21st of this year, we are going to have 0321 day at Ballast Point. We have a new logo for this year. Same beer we're going to use called Subsurface. And we've added another fundraising opportunity for this event, because the event really is just for guys to come together, camaraderie, drink some beers, hang out.
Of course.
Yeah, we will raise some money through some donations and t-shirt sales from the artwork that we have. But this year we're doing something called the Recondo Hundo. So 30 days leading up to 0321 day, you can sign up for it. And you need to run 100 miles in 30 days.
Shit, that's badass.
So,
damn.
So, and then you can go to the website, set up your individual campaign, post it on your socials. People can donate to it.
Okay.
And dude, if we get 20 runners to raise $1,000 a piece, man, like that would be huge.
So what? What are you raising the money for? Just the foundation? That's to help what?
No. So every year, and this is their like main line of effort for the Recon Foundation, they do many other things to help out members of the reconnaissance community, family members of the reconnaissance community, corpsmen of the reconnaissance community. But this particular event funds the Gold Star Family Retreat. Okay. So the Recon Foundation, every year they have like a different group of Gold Star family members spanning from Vietnam all the way through GWAT and current. And they basically fly those family members out. So, moms and dads that were left behind, daughters, wives that were left behind, and they fly them out to Camp Pendleton for the Recon Challenge. Okay. And they're able to watch the Recon Challenge. And the Recon Challenge is a 30-mile plus 55-pound ruck event where the Recondos run with the name of fallen on their ruck. So the family members get to see that, and then immediately following that, they fly the family members out to the Paul Mitchell estate on Oahu for a retreat. So this money funds that effort, and it's the last fundraising push for that effort.
Okay, I'll try to post that like in the bio under the episode, so hopefully send some that way. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can send you the links and stuff.
Yeah, please do. Will you want to leave us with anything, brother? Anything come up, or you want to say anything? It's on you.
No, man, I really appreciate you having me on. Cool. I hope that I'm able to have an effect on some gals out there.
Absolutely.
And if anybody ever needs anything like veteran wise, just hit me up. Just find me on Instagram. Randall in San Diego.
Gotcha.
Is my tagline.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And where if they want to watch anything on you, what you have anything coming up, or just go at Urban Valor?
Yeah, Urban Valor has a couple episodes that I did, and then obviously this one.
Good to go.
So yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Well, once again, I appreciate you coming on, man, and maybe we'll talk again going down the line. But there you have it, guys. Episode 95, Hard to Kill, with First Sergeant Randall Parkes. Semper Fi, brother.
Later, brother.